Giedo Jansen from the Netherlands. He just started at IS, or ISHZ, University of Amsterdam, and he will present, because he's now formally project leader of the BARCOVID project. He will present the status so far. Giedo, the floor is yours.
Good. So thank you, Pauline. I hope that everyone can hear me and see my presentation properly. I think that it all goes fine. Thank you all for coming to this webinar this afternoon. My name is indeed Giedo Jansen. I'm assistant professor at the University of Amsterdam. And as Pauline explained briefly, I'm quite new to this project, and yet I have the privilege to introduce to you our midterm summary of the BARCOVID project. What I will do in this very short presentation is to talk you through some of the objectives of the BARCOVID project and show at a glance where we are in terms of output and results. You may understand this short presentation as a prelude to what is to come, because my colleagues also present here who will share this stage later with me will talk about these sub-projects in more depth. Yet, for those of you who are, as I am, relatively new to this BARCOVID project, allow me to say some introductory words. The main aim of BARCOVID is to investigate to what extent and how the COVID-19 pandemic, and especially the social and economic consequences of COVID-19, have and are impacting the industrial relations and collective bargaining in Europe, and especially also the outcomes of collective bargaining. We do so in a consortium of at least 4 key partners. We already mentioned the university that I'm affiliated with, University of Amsterdam. There's also the Central European Labour Institute in Bratislava, the Wage Indicator Foundation based in the Netherlands, and the Santa Ana School of Advanced Studies in Pisa. As Pauline mentioned before, this is our midterm event. The BARCOVID project already started somewhat more than over a year ago in April 21 and will run until March 23, which indeed means that here right before the summer of 2022 we have our midterm event. So we are here to update one another on how far we are. BARCOVID consists of various interrelated research questions, and allow me to talk you through each of them. The first element is about the impact of COVID-19 on the industrial relations landscape, addressing the question, will the COVID pandemic and the consequences thereof affect the industrial relations landscape and the degree of coordination among employers, workers, the representatives and public authorities in Europe? Doing so, this part of the project aims to collect and analyze various text extractions from press releases and newsletters by various social partners in Europe. The main aim of this project was to do so, say 50 items per month, press releases during 24 months, aimed at 1,200 items to be analyzed. We are well on target here. 1,400, over 1,400 text extractions have been collected so far, and my colleagues Armanda Centrulo and Lucia Kovakova are going to talk about this in more depth later on, explaining how keyword extractions are used to classify news items to look for the prevalence of certain keywords related to, well, policies on the one hand and key pandemic themes on the other hand. In terms of deliverables, also this project is well on its way. We promised in BARCOVID to publish 8 quarterly reports analyzing a monthly updating database on these text extractions. 3 of these reports have already been published. A 4th report is in the making, so if you're interested, keep an eye on that report for the end of this month. And by the end of this project in 2023, there's one overarching report foreseen about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the industrial relations in general. That's the first part of the BARCOVID project. I'm not going to talk too much about the numbers. Armanda and Lucia are going to do that in far more detail. Allow me only to share that the empirical basis thereof truly is of a European scope, covering text extractions and information on press releases on the industrial landscape from nearly all European countries. The second part of the BARCOVID project is on the impact on collective bargaining agreements and especially the renewal of collective bargaining agreements. Asking the question to what extent and how COVID-19 has impacted the chance that collective bargaining agreements have been renewed. To do so, we aim to collect and investigate a wide array of collective agreements in various European countries. The aim here was to investigate at least 600 collective agreements already in the collective agreement database and check whether or not they have expired and been renewed over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. Also here we're quite well on track. 619 CBAs are already in the database and 119 post-COVID renewals have been collected so far, of which the majority is already inserted in the collective agreement database. On top of analyzing collective agreements itself, we aim to follow up with a short online survey among social partners involved in collective agreements that are not renewed. And here we foresee a short survey in at least 5 countries of key interest to the BARCOVID project. And we aim to interview at least 10 respondents from each of these 5 countries. And on top of that, in the 13 other countries in the BARCOVID project, we add another 20 respondents there. This online survey is currently in the making, it's in development, and it's scheduled for the fall of this year. In the end, the second part of the BARCOVID project is set out to deliver 8 country reports and again 1 comparative overall report, both scheduled for the end of this project in 2023. Now my presentation breaks down. Good. Third research question related to the second one, although not so much focused on the renewal strategies of collective agreements, but much more on the clauses to be found in collective agreements. So which clauses negotiated in collective agreements have changed under pressure of the COVID pandemic? Which clauses have been added on average to collective agreements, or which one disappeared in the course of the COVID pandemic? Also here we rely on extensive data collection, collecting information on collective agreements from various countries. For 3 countries, we aim to enter 50 new, so renewed collective agreements to the database. So that's 150 collective agreements for those 3 countries. We're currently quite well on track. 55 renewals have been collected already. For Austria and France, 50 collective agreements before COVID, 50 after COVID are expected to be included in the database. And here we are currently at 34 already in the database. And for the 13 other countries in this project already, we're also at 30% of our envisioned target of the number of CBAs to be included before we can start doing the overall analysis to see how the before and after comparison turns out. So that's the analysis to be scheduled also for, in terms of the deliverables, a before and after change analysis to be found again in several specific country reports and 1 overarching report, all scheduled for the end of 2023. This is my summary and also my prelude to what is to come this afternoon. I hope that this has already spurred some interest in the various subtopics that my colleagues are going to talk about for the remainder of this webinar. And on my end, I can only say I wish you a very fruitful and interesting afternoon. So thank you very much.
Thanks a million, Giedo. Well done. And we all know that you just started and you're actually on top of it. Very good. Thanks a lot.